You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. The former police officer who shot and killed Daunte Wright, she is in jail facing second-degree murder charges, which, of course, is 10 years in prison, up to a $20,000 fine. This is the mugshot of former Brooklyn Center, Minnesota police officer Kimberly Potter. Potter killed 20-year-old Daunte Wright Sunday during a traffic stop. Again, she was arrested around noon. She says she mistakenly pulled her gun instead of her taser. Police have been dispatched to her home as protesters gathered outside of her house. The Wright family attorney, Ben Crump, released a statement about Potter's arrest, but also earlier today, there was a news conference that took place as well. We're going to show you some of that. This is the statement right here. Go ahead and pull it up, please. This is the statement. All right, y'all can pull the statement up, please. Thank you. While we appreciate that the district attorney is pursuing justice for Daunte, no conviction can give the Wright family their loved one back. This was no accident. This was an intentional, deliberate, and unlawful use of force. Driving while black continues to result in a death sentence. A 26-year veteran of the force knows the difference between a taser and a firearm. As I said, the news conference today took place there in Minnesota, which also he was standing with Sabrina Fulton and Eric Garner, of course, Gwen Carr, the mother of Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner.
The reason why we are able to get an opportunity at due process so quickly in the state of Minnesota for the killing of Daunte Wright is because of the blood of their children. It was the blood of their children who got us to this point now in America. Because remember, Leslie didn't get due process. The police officer was never charged and arrested like the officer was today. Gwen Carr, as you all know, she never got due process. Nobody was ever arrested and had to face evidence and witnesses in a court of law for choking Eric Gardner. Sequette Clark never ever got due process in Sacramento when Stephon Clark was killed in his grandmother's backyard. And Sabrina Fulton, my Lord, the sacrifices of what she has given and how Trayvon Martin has propelled the notion that Black Lives Matter and that we should get equal justice under the law is the reason why on this day in 2021, in less than a week, Reverend, in less than a week, the district attorney made the decision that we will charge this officer and the family of Daunte Wright will get to have their day in court. So we say justice for Daunte Wright, and yeah, we're going to say justice here in New York for Daunte Wright, so they can hear it in Minnesota to know that we're coming. And in saying justice for Daunte Wright, we're also saying justice for Michael Brown. We're also saying justice for Eric Gardner. We're also saying justice for Trayvon Martin. And we're also saying justice for Stephon Clark.
Let's pull in our panel. A. Scott Bolden, former chair of National Bar Association Political Action Committee. Robert Patillo, Executive Director, Rainbow Push Coalition, Peachtree Street Project. Monique Presley, Legal Analyst, Crisis Manager. Monique, I'll start with you to sit here to see this decision. She resigns yesterday, indicted today. It's a lot different from seeing her in a police uniform on Sunday in an orange jumpsuit on Wednesday.
Yes, that's true. It's very different.
Not only is it different, it's also quick. As Ben Crump said, we rarely see this quickness, Robert Patillo. Typically, it's a week or 2 weeks. This is, I'm trying to think back to previous cases if we've seen this indictment and arrest this quickly.
Well, it's important to realize that this is the effect of people power, that regardless of what legislatures do, regardless of what the federal government does sitting on the George Floyd Criminal Justice Reform Act, that we have cities now and district attorney offices and mayors that understand that if I don't want my city burned to the ground, I better hop on some action and get things done. Now, I do have questions about the charge that she was given, which is a second-degree manslaughter charge. So in Minnesota, that is a negligent homicide charge. That is for example, a part of the statute says if you accidentally kill somebody when you thought you were shooting a deer, that is a second-degree manslaughter under Minnesota law. So I don't know why you start there when you're coming to charges in this. Because what we've seen since the moment the shooting took place was a PR campaign saying it was just a mistake, it was an accident. We don't have any evidence that this was a mistake. We don't have any evidence that this was an accident. I own a Glock and I own a Taser. You cannot confuse the two in any reasonable person's mind. A black Glock 17 weighs about 30 ounces. A X26 Taser weighs about 10 ounces. One is bright green and neon green. The other is black. One of them, you have to flip a switch up with your thumb in order to activate it, the Taser, and then allow it to charge for a couple seconds. On the Glock, there's not even a safety on it, so you can fire instantly. So the idea that somehow we are going to begin by presuming that it was an accident, this is no different than killing somebody during a deer hunting accident. I do think that we have to re-examine that, because we give white women the benefit of the doubt when it comes to interactions with black men. We saw this with Botham Jean, where a black man can be sitting on his couch eating ice cream, and you shoot him in his own house, and you get a Bible and a hug from the judge and a hug from the victim's brother. We saw this with Emmett Till, where the woman finally admitted years later that she was lying, and there was still no justice in that case. So I don't know why we're starting from a position of assuming the best and giving her the benefit of the doubt while destroying the victim's character in the media when he has no ability to respond, because of course he is the decedent. We want black men in this country to have the same benefit of the doubt when they are killed as white women have when they are the killers.
Scott?
Boy, you got a Taser and a 9mm? How you living? Oh, you down there in Georgia. Let me say this. I'm not as upset at these facts as my colleague is. The evidence that it was an accident, but you can be charged because of an accident, is that as soon as she shot him, she said, "Oh shit, I shot him." That's pretty powerful evidence that it was an accident or unintentional. Doesn't mean you don't get charged, and she got charged with manslaughter, and you had the video right there. And you had a police chief resigning, she resigned, and so you could be pretty swift and effective. You know, unfortunately, these are tragic cases, but the facts, ironically, keep getting better for the families of the victims and for those who are going to be charged, and then later in the civil justice system. And so that's why she was charged so quickly. But let me just say this. This is going to be an interesting case, because she's going to take the stand and cry and beg for forgiveness and say that it was tragic, much like in a few other cases. And the jury has got to stay focused and say manslaughter 2 is manslaughter 2. Basically, you recklessly did this, and she did. So I think that the city's going to settle this lawsuit, and then the trial may or may not occur, but there's going to be some time served.
Monique, the fact that, well, first, obviously the city is going to settle. I mean, it's rare they don't settle. But what you have here is that whole notion of it was an accident. Police chief comes out and says that, to Scott's point. You hear her on the video as well. But you know, for people there in Brooklyn Center, they were demanding immediate action, and the mayor certainly said that was going to happen. Get your comment. I'm going to play the mayor's news conference today.
Right, and I agree with Scott, first of all, and second of all, I hope that Robert is not correct. And that these charges did not come as a result of public pressure, and that they did not rush to charge and do something that was not well thought out and based in due process and set evidence and bringing charges against this officer. When I saw that the police chief, I wasn't surprised by the officer resigning. That's the right call. When the police chief resigned, I knew she was about to get charged. I knew it was about to happen quickly. And that was a protest resignation in support of
Yeah.
officer who's, you know, a 20-something year veteran, someone who he knows, who's managed to be on the police force all this time, interacting with all kinds of people of all ages, of all races, and never ever doing this. So we know that there were some circumstances here. I think the video also, as Scott said, does not inure to a conviction in this case. And so, yes, it's going to settle, and maybe she'll end up taking a plea so that she doesn't have to go through with the trial. But be clear, this is not Chauvin. This is not some witness who they can't even prep into finding any remorse for what was obviously some heinous action. This is a very different case. And this is going to be a witness who feels remorse, who displays remorse, likely because she feels remorse. So while, yeah, the white woman and the et cetera and the so on, the video is pretty plain. And what I'm not ready to say yet is that this person intentionally went for a gun instead of a taser. I don't have any history or background between this officer and the decedent that makes me think that kind of history was going into some malice or some extra negligence on her part. So the charge is appropriate, but what we really have to do if people want these things to change is back way up to why it's put in a police officer's hands to do these kinds of stops in the first place. So all the people who couldn't understand the propriety, the necessity of defunding the police and taking these matters out of their hands, I hope that they have a clearer understanding of it now, because the only way that we don't get to a result like this is if we did not have in the hands of an officer responsibility for low-level misdemeanors, whether it's tags or a broken blinking light or an air freshener, none of that. They should be off solving crimes, looking for hardened felons, tracking down people who have committed dangerous offenses so that these low-level stops don't turn into instances where there is the use of devices that can kill, such as a gun, and devices like a taser, which has killed people also when improperly used. So just like I said for Eric Garner almost 7 years ago, I'm going to say today, one case, one decedent, one judgment, that is not the way to effect change. Change comes across the board: community, cell block, and in the courthouse. We need all three.
Yeah. Hey, Roland, real quick. You know, one of the big facts on this case that we're not talking about is she was a 26-year veteran. You know, I often say, who are we giving guns and badges to? Here, she was a 26-year veteran. How much training has she gone through recently?
Well, first of all, keep in mind, she also was training rookies.
Exactly. So if it was a split-second decision where she meant to use her left hand versus her right hand, there's clearly a distinction between a gun and a taser. If she just blanked out or blacked out and hadn't been in any training herself, despite her training people, that's going to be a key fact here in regard to criminality and the mens rea, and whether she could develop the criminal intent to commit second-degree manslaughter.
I don't know that, but see, Robert, here's the issue she's going to have to deal with. You're the one who's training new cops. Out of anybody who should know, you should know.
Well, that's not helpful. That's not a helpful fact.
Excuse me 1 second. Excuse me. I said Robert. Robert, go.
And that's exactly my point. The amount of benefit of the doubt that we give white women in this country is staggering. Well, you can shoot somebody at point blank range and say, oops, my bad, and we will believe them. You can shoot somebody sitting in their apartment and say, oops, my bad, I thought it was my apartment, and we will believe them. Or you can push your kids into a lake and say a black man did it and say, oops, my bad, and then we will believe them. So when we say we're charging her, she has been charged with the exact same charge that we would have if we went deer hunting and I accidentally killed you. That is the value that we are putting on the life of a black man. The only evidence that we have that it was a mistake is her saying it was a mistake. Because guess what? If I was going to shoot somebody and I knew I was holding a camera, I would say, oh, damn, my bad, I didn't mean to kill you. And because she's been on the force for 26 years and has investigated cases before, if she wanted to kill somebody, she will know exactly what to say and what to do to create the factual basis to ensure that she will not be charged. Why do we give her this benefit of the doubt? Meanwhile, this young man who was murdered is having his entire life being put on display every time that he returned a library book late. If he's put gum in little Susie's hair in kindergarten, we are analyzing that in the press. What drugs was she on at the time of this killing that made her confuse a block from a taser? Hold on. What was her previous background in police brutality cases? Why isn't that being put out the same way that his criminal record is being put out? Why are we not talking about sleep deprivation among officers or steroid use among officers or drug use among officers? And why is it that it took a couple of days to arrest her? Because guess what? If you or I killed somebody right now, they would not wait till Wednesday or Thursday to arrest her. We'll be taken in at the scene so they can begin the investigation. By giving her a couple of days of lead time, that means any evidence that could have existed could have been destroyed. For all we know, you could go to her house and she got a robe and a hood in the closet, and that will be gone by now. So I don't understand why we're simply saying society needs to change. No, we need to charge the person who just killed somebody at point blank range with murder, and if the facts change later, you change the charges later. But the idea that we start from the place of saying the killing this black man, the same thing as accidentally killing somebody during deer hunting, I don't think that's the justice many of us are looking for.
Well, you've added a ton of facts to what we don't know, and I'm glad you have this crystal ball.
We don't know.
I'll tell you one thing. As soon as the woman shot him, rightfully or wrongfully, and it was wrong, as soon as she shot him, right, she said, oh, shit, I shot him. That's pretty powerful and definitive evidence here, whether you arrest her then or arrest her 2 days later, that, in fact, she screwed up big time. I'm not letting her off the hook because she's a white woman. She was black, yellow, or brown. She should still be charged because she's got it. Oh, remember this. She has a license and a badge and a gun to use it. You could not arrest her on the spot without some level of investigation. It's going to be a tough case. And if the facts turn out what you just added to the scenario that you don't know and I don't know, but if it is added, those facts are true, then so be it. She'll be charged. She'll be indicted for murder or what have you. But let's not jump to conclusions.
Hold on. One second, Monique, then Robert.
Let's not forget, it's not just what Scott pointed out that she said after the fact. It is during the action of it. Taser, taser, taser. After a threat to use a taser.
Excellent
and
point.
What you may want to calculate. And it's one thing for us to sit off here in our relative safety of ivory towers and think that on this night, 26 years into the police force, this woman decided it was her day as a white woman to kill a black man and get away with it 10 miles down from the trial of Derek Chauvin for the murder that should have been a first-degree murder charge of George Floyd. But I simply do not, based on what we have now, buy that. My obligation and what I view as our obligation, if we're sitting in the legal analyst seat, is to call balls and strikes based on the information we have from our experience in doing this kind of work. So what I can say is that in the split-second decision-making that officers make, especially those with a great deal of training, it is not the first time that Glock has been mistaken for a taser. That is the reason why they did a whole bunch of things in terms of changing the way that they are holstered, the side of the body that they are on. They have taken steps because of this type of accident. So it's not a novice thing. I am not prepared in this incident to say that she's being given the benefit of her whiteness in the fact that she's being believed, because if she was really being believed by that, we would still be waiting for a charge. I am also not prepared yet to say that there was intentionality, and if they had the ability to charge higher up the scale and they really were concerned about things being burned down in the city, we would have already gotten that charge too. So I want us all to for real take a beat and understand that there are root causes for these actions, and the root cause does not rest in one officer who may have legitimately made a mistake, and we owe it to our system of laws and to the safety of all Black men, not just one, to get at root causes and fix them.
Robert?
But look, at the same time, and give me a second to lay this out. One, she's been on the force 26 years. So if I wanted to kill somebody, I would know exactly what to say beforehand and what to do afterwards in order to make it look like it was an accident. I would know to say, taser, 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 reach for my Glock, and then afterwards say, oh, damn, my bad, I didn't mean to do that. Two, the fact that last night they had police security who set up barriers and gates around her house before she was charged means that anything that may have been there that could have been evidentiary could have been removed in that period of time. This is why I say that it's important to charge at the scene because you can always reduce an indictment later. You can always go back to the grand jury and say we have different information now, but you can't get that time back to collect that evidence. We don't know what was on her computer. We don't know what was on her cell phone. We don't know if she had any previous interactions with the young man who was killed, who did have previous interactions in the criminal justice system. So we're giving her this supreme benefit of the doubt, starting off by saying that it was an accident when we have nothing to say that was an accident other than her saying it was an accident. And I want Black men in this country to have the same benefit of the doubt given to them for dying as we do to white officers for killing them in the first place. So I don't know why we're starting from a place of saying it was an accident just based on her word of saying it's an accident. And then even with the charge, the second-degree negligent manslaughter, it carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. We know this is going to plead out. So now we're down to 5 years, maybe, a maximum of a $20,000 fine. Once you get into the system, she might serve 18 months for killing this young man and then be right back on, in our communities doing private security, working for some other firm, selling books, going on book tours like George Zimmerman, those sorts of things. So I think we have to not just take any crumbs of justice and demand the full justice for a full life that was lost.
Okay, just in terms of guidelines and procedure, hold on, Scott. Just in terms of guidelines and procedure, just because she was not arrested does not mean that everything in her possession wasn't taken. In fact, it was. All right. So that's police guidelines and procedures for an officer involved shooting. She was immediately quarantined. She was immediately held for questioning. Everything that she had on her was removed from her. She didn't get to just go home and sleep and figure it out and clean the car and clean the house. That's not the way that it works. Even when she has a chilling period or cooling period where she has an opportunity to seek counsel, those things would have happened immediately. But in Minnesota, there is no such period. So same as the officers in the Floyd case were separated and then held and then taken for questioning. That's what happened with her. That's why the chief knew what was about to happen and resigned. So I just don't want, people are hot and emotional as they should be. And I'm not one of those calling for peace, 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 because when people are at war with us, they can't expect peace from us. That works my nerves too. But I at least want all of the facts out there before we create some and make it more salacious and more tragic than it already is.
Right.
Scott, go ahead.
But here's the best, real quick, here is the best fact made or point made of all of us in this discussion. Taser, 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 taser. You know why she yelled that or somebody yelled that? That's to put everybody on the police side as well as the defendant or the arrestee, that I'm drawing my taser and I'm about to tase your ass. That's what I'm doing. And everybody steps back, everybody adjusts, and then she pulled it, and then she used the 9mm. That is the most powerful evidence that at least this was a reckless accident on her part. That's why they could never really charge murder, because she's telling you what she's about to do. She's giving you intent and the mindset, and she just did the opposite of it. I can't put a mens rea lay a cloak on that and make it into murder one under any circumstances. That evidence is too powerful to the contrary. So we'll have to watch closely, Roland. But this is not going to be an easy case. I think it pleads and settles. And it's a tragic case for all those involved. It really is.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.